Welcome to In the Den. My name is Roscoe Burnems. Make some noise. I know we're here for a serious, for some serious topics, but I may or may not be cutting up all night. That's just who I am as a person. But we're here to have a good time tonight. Say word. And it's a party with a purpose. We've done In the Den before. It's kind of like a late night style show. We bring you some performances. We bring you some interviews with some interesting people. In the past, we've interviewed some artists. Kinfolk, DJ Kinfolk has been one of our guests before, who's also an amazing comedian in addition to being a fantastic DJ. Today we have some people coming through who are going to drop some gems on us, some knowledge, and they're going to share some things with us. Some things we may know, some things we may not, but I know we're going to walk away with more than what we came in here with. Say word. So in addition to that, we're going to also still have some fantastic performances, some poems, and some songs. So if you're ready to have a good time tonight, somebody say word. This is an extension of a collaboration with Marijuana Justice that my organization, the Writers Den, we partnered together to put together this project called Poetic Justice, where we have some poems centered around reparations, particularly reparations in response to the drug war. It's been an amazing collaboration. Shouts out to Chelsea Higgs-Wise. Y'all show some love for Chelsea Higgs-Wise, the creator of Marijuana Justice. You'll be hearing more from her and our other speakers a little later. We have put together this project, and so we'll be doing more with these poems, more with these pieces, more community events like that where we get people engaged more often throughout the year. Say word. So let's take a little look at this. We got a little something for you.
Marijuana Justice has been doing reparations work directly for about 3 years now, and we were homegrown right here in Richmond, and we were really looking for what was next. Going out to the different art scenes, going out to the Writers' Den monthly slams, I got to be upfront and personal with these artists expressing themselves that spoke directly to me, but even to the larger movement, more importantly. And after that, that's when I went up to Roscoe and I said, what if we really did something together?
I have been a fan of Chelsea's work in the city for a long time. She had become like a pillar in all these movements that have been going on in Richmond. And art and activism have always had an intersectionality, and so this seemed like a no-brainer when it came to collaborating. I also want to say that it gave us a space. A lot of times we don't get involved because we don't really know how we fit into a movement. And I know that for me personally, that had been one of the hangups. And it's like, well, I don't really know what skills do I bring? How do I continue to help us move forward? And so being able to have this collaboration, I'm like, well, this is the skill set that I have. This is how I'm able to use my talents for this greater good.
Hearing folks that may not think that they know about reparations, but tell these stories and these experiences that literally tell the story that we are also trying to share, it's made me have to grow in a way that communicates to people differently so that they can see themselves in this movement. And as an organizer, I always have to continue to grow that because it is my job to invite people in the movement.
Me personally, I believe that poetry is the mother of art. So I think the connection, being able to collaborate, it gives what this movement that is so important a bigger platform. You know, sometimes like with music and any other type of art, when people hear it, they might be hearing something they didn't even know that they needed it.
You're going to see poetry that reflects the times, right? The poet has always kind of been the historian. It's always been a reflection of what's happening in society, what's happening in the culture. And so once that changes and we get to this better space, you're going to get narratives that exist in that space as well.
What I would like people to take away from this piece is an understanding that marijuana justice is not just about being able to smoke weed without getting arrested, and that reparations isn't just about getting paid for something that happened in the past. That there's a bigger connection that has bigger implications throughout the community.
So one more time for Marijuana Justice and all the work that they're doing, including this event right here. Remember, the movement always needs people, right? The movement always needs people. The movement always needs people, right? So if you want to figure out how you can also lend your time, your talent, your energy to helping these movements progress, make sure you reach out to these folks. Say word. Fantastic. So we'll be hearing more from Chelsea Higgs Wise later to talk about drug war reparations and all the work that Marijuana Justice is doing on our panel. But we also have two other speakers who will be up here in front of you today. He's a historian. He is director of community engagement at the Virginia Museum of History and Culture. I always kind of botch the letters up a little bit, you know what I mean? But Joseph Rogers is here. Show some love for Joseph Rogers. And she is a widely accomplished reparations expert and leader in these like liberation movements all across the country, right? So show some love for Dreesen Heath. Dreesen Heath is in the building tonight. We'll be talking to them a little later and asking them some questions and getting to know them a little bit more. Say word. But we're going to kick it off with some poetry. This gentleman is one of my favorite people. He's been a part of the Writer's Den for a few years now. He's such a genuine, like caring individual, very passionate, very eclectic, very creative, and I'm proud to call him a friend and a teammate. He's been on the Writer's Den Poetry Slam team. The Writer's Den is a poetry-based art collective. We do a number of events in the city, but primarily we do a monthly poetry slam in Shako Bottom at a Dees Ethiopian restaurant. So if you're in the mood for some great entertainment, some passionate poems, and powerful performances, say that 3 times fast, then you need to come and check us out at the Writer's Den first Sunday. Say word. Where you might see this individual right here. Please show some love. Welcome up to the stage, Mo Flows.
10 and 2, 10 and 2, 10 and 2. I'm not anxious. I'm not angry. I'm tired. I just want to get home, step outside of this body, let my head hit a cushion, vaporize into nothingness. No, officer, I guess I don't know why you pulled me over. But flashbacks have all my lines melted to memory, and we've rehearsed this quite a few times. I mean, I can recite the lines. So let's just skip to the part where you asked me to step out, as I know you can smell the sweet scent of skunk that steams from my palms, like the warm exhale of a New York City street. Brings comfort to a vagabond, as we've both been stepped over and stepped upon, left for broke. But I would never be broke in or hold my hands out. So yes, I've tilled soil with these green thumbs. Sometimes making shit work requires doing dirt, yet you turn your nose up as if the man you are has never reeked of manure. So listen, let's just remove the line that says don't move. I won't flinch as you scrape the scraps of residue from under my nails. Don't want to leave me with a dime or any evidence of your role when the smoke clears. Get them up, higher. Those were your lines. My natural reaction to this unwritten script already knows the choreography for this scene. Keep my hands up to keep them empty while you recite Miranda's lines. Another sentence written to the bitter reality of this 13th Amendment. This lemon law that you called 3 strikes, while you pitch false justice to justify removing me from the game so you could take the field. Cash in on my fruit of labor, then craft loopholes behind my back to leave me hanging while you march to Capitol Hill. $500,000 hemmed up for harvesting hemp. We bake, set the table for you to eat good. Now you're reaping what we've sown. And then give out legalized lies like 25% of revenue invested into the education sounds good, but the literacy bells still don't ring in the hood. And you don't seem alarmed. So I wrote a list of demands on the palm of my hands. Figured this be the best way that you see them. Here written on my headline in black ink, cannabis removed from the controlled substance list only to provide sustenance for the pockets of lobbyists. But we won't be silenced by your hush money policies. We demand priority. You see, you've undervalued our humility, misappropriated our being, but you didn't account for this resilience, this inflation of consciousness that now knows that our 2 cents is worth more than the pennies that you toss us. We demand change for funding white privilege, with the richness of this existence, shades of gold and copper melted from the melanin of our skin as we cultivated everything under the sun. We've supplied, now we demand autonomy. All right? Now, this is the part where you put me under arrest for resisting or for refusing to recite a fate line that still has me tethered to poverty, or for improvising, or for being too black to play the part of a white collar, or for going off script and finally reading between the lines.
Because I'm going to tell you right now, if you got a text, I would have read it. Whoever was saying, I would have read it. Out loud, on the mic. WYD. On the way. All right, one more time for Mo Flows, please. All right, are we ready for our first speaker? Somebody say yeah. So Joseph Rogers is originally from Roanoke, Virginia, all right, served in the United States Naval Reserve, moved to Richmond, and now is the Director of Partnerships and Community Engagement at the Virginia Museum of History and Culture, and is the president of the Afro-American Historical and Genealogical Society's Greater Richmond chapter. Man, an accomplished brother who has a wealth of knowledge. Y'all show some love for Joseph Rogers. Well, thanks for doing this, man. Thanks for being out here. We really appreciate it. It was actually we got a chance to talk not too long before this, and it was a great conversation. And I thought I knew some things, but I learned a lot in the process. So, I mean, really, like, let's get into it. So, the Emancipation Day is essentially like Richmond's Juneteenth, right? Is that a fair way to kind of at least kind of summarize it?
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
So April 3rd, 1865, all right? It's Emancipation Proclamation hits Richmond. What's happening like right before that?
Well, I mean, we have to start by thinking about what the Emancipation Proclamation is and what it did, right? So why is it called Emancipation Day? Why are we talking about it in the context of a document that Abraham Lincoln wrote, right? And who only visits Richmond after what we consider Emancipation Day, which is today, April 3rd. First of all,
bring that mic up just a little bit.
Yeah, first of all, we're going all the way back, right? So we're going to go to the Civil War starts, white folks start shooting at each other, and they're not thinking about black folks really at all. Let's be upfront about why this, like, that whole context of it, right?
From now on, I want us to frame it as white folks was shooting at each other. From this day forward, when we talk about the Civil War, white folks were shooting at each other. I'm not describing it any other way from now on.
Well, I mean, but that's really what's happening. You have your first Battle of Manassas, Bull Run, and it's the people from the Confederacy are shooting at people from the United States Army, and the Confederacy has broken off specifically to preserve the institution of slavery. But the United States Army is not there to end the institution of slavery. They're just trying to say, hey, it's not fair that you decided to break away. Because as a result of a free and fair election, you can't just decide to take your ball and go home because you don't like the results. Right? That's not how democracy works. The Confederacy is saying, no, we're going to take it anyway. And it breaks out into war. But the people who the Confederacy are now claiming are their own property, right? They're saying, well, we see an opportunity here. And so as the war is breaking out, as people are fighting, on this other side now, we've got individuals who are seizing freedom in their own hands. Virginia has a huge population of enslaved people. Like in Richmond in particular is the second largest hub for the domestic slave trade in the United States prior to the outbreak of the war. Right. And so as what's happening is like people are coming across the lines and they're saying, hey, we want to be free. We've been enslaved. We've been held in bondage. Our labor has been stolen for the profit of others. And we want to take that and bring ourselves across the line. That's why I think this is a great context of putting it in, right, as reparations, because the first people who really, during the course of the war, take this action are three men, Frank Baker, Shepard Mallory, James Townsend, who crossed the river from Norfolk all the way to Hampton. They go to Fort Monroe. They say the general there at the fort, and they say, hey, we want to be free. We're running away. We're going to escape. We are seeking freedom here. And the general there goes, all right, come on in. And then the person who was enslaving them, someone who's working for Virginia, who's now a soldier in the Confederate Army, says, hey, under the 1850 laws, or Fugitive Slave Act, you need to return my property to me. Well, that's a bit of an audacious claim, right? You're at war with this other country, and you're saying you need to return my property under your own laws. And Frank Butler is saying, no, actually. General Butler says, you've declared war on the United States, so I'm going to actually declare these three individuals as contrabands of war. I am seizing your property as property of the United States now as contrabands of war. Again, this is an exchange of property. We're still talking about value of individuals.
Right, not prisoners of war,
prisoners
like
of war,
people. You know what I mean? Contraband, yeah.
War.
The caucasity of it.
Yes, the caucasity indeed.
Caucasity.
But it's a step, right? Because the contraband decision ultimately becomes a federal policy. It gets taken up, and it becomes what Abraham Lincoln bases his Emancipation Proclamation on. So 1862 comes along. The United States Army's finally got some victories under its belt. And now Abraham Lincoln is able to issue a preliminary proclamation where he says, hey, Southern states, if you don't get back here, I'm going to say every single piece of property that you have is free. Everybody just goes free. And that's where we get the Emancipation Proclamation, because of course they don't listen.
Right.
They say, all right, we'll don't leave. It says, there's a timer. It's going to go off. This is going to hit January 1 of 1863.
Now, but that happens. They don't just comply.
No.
So then what happens? What happens next?
Again, they've declared themselves to be a separate country entirely. They're saying the edicts of the President of the United States has nothing to do with the Confederate States. And so the actual Emancipation Proclamation itself does three things. It declares all those held in bondage in the states in rebellion to be free. That's the first thing. That's the big one. It says, two, that the United States Army has the power to enforce that freedom. And then it says, three, that black men can join the army to enact that freedom. Right? Those are the three big things that we want to take away from this, because it means that, yes, they've been declared free, but it doesn't matter if no one's there to enact it. So the United States Army has to actually do it. But who's now going to be in the army to make sure that that's happening? Who's turning this army, this war for the Union, into a war for freedom? And it's black men. It's black men with guns. It's black women helping and supporting the army, teaching the people who are now free to come out and actually do to become and work through that freedom. It is all these people coming together to make it happen. Shout out to my son back there who's a little bit fussy. He's like, oh, I see Papa, but I can't get to him. But that's what happens. This becomes a war for freedom, a war of emancipation, and it's led, the spearhead of that freedom war are the black folks who 30 years before, we're fighting in Nat Turner's rebellion.
Oh, wow.
30 years before that, we're prepared to fight in Gabriel's rebellion.
Right.
And 25 years before that, we're fighting for the United States in the American Revolution.
Oh, wow.
These are people who have gotten that trend, that habit, and they're ready and willing to fight.
Right.
And they do so. But everywhere everywhere the United States Army goes, that's where freedom follows.
So then April 3rd, 1865, because you said, so the Emancipation Proclamation is January 1st, 1863. So 2 years later, it makes its way down to Richmond.
Yes.
To kind of what's this day look like for
Well, it's
the now
chaos.
formerly enslaved?
Yeah, well, so at first, the city is literally on fire. When the Confederate government evacuates on April 2nd, they've set some fire to some things that they consider they don't want to fall into the hands of the United States Army. And they're like, all right, here, we're going to light the match and then let's book it across the bridge and then burn the bridge behind us. Well, as the bridge is burning, the sparks from the fire are now catching elsewhere. And so now you've seen the fire burning the downtown area of Richmond. Oh, wow. There's whiskey in the streets because people are sitting there and they're like, well, we don't want them to get drunk like they did in Vicksburg and everywhere else. So we're going to dump the whiskey out in the barrels in the streets. So there's whiskey flowing down the streets. There's fires coming up out of downtown. And the government that has been forcing the labor of all these people for the last 4 years is gone. So Joseph Mayo, who's the mayor of the city at the time, is like, ugh, they left me high and dry, y'all. I need somebody to help. There's a huge army outside my door. I'm going to ask them. So Joseph Mayo rides out and he asks the general of the army, of the United States Army, he says, hey, can you help us restore order? And so on April 3rd is when the United States Army comes into the city. Now, there's a lot of different reports of who walks in first, right? The white folks say white folks walk in first, and the black folks say black folks walked in first. And really, it doesn't matter who got there first. It's what they did when they got there, right?
Matters to me. Sorry.
Yeah. You're not wrong.
I'm saying the quiet parts out loud. I'm sorry.
Listen, I could get into what the black press said at the time because it's a really great one. The Philadelphia Reporter who writes about it. But I'm going to stick into this part because what happens is, right, the white folks go in, the white soldiers come in, and they start restoring order. They help put out the fires. Most of them are already gone, but they help putting things back together. They help doing all these things and, organizing, except blah, 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 blah. The black folks go to the jails. Right. The 5th Massachusetts Cavalry Brigade, the 25th Corps, they walk straight down to Shockoe Bottom, and they throw open the slave jails. And say, everybody here, y'all are free. That's what we're here to do.
Right.
That's what we joined to do. You see all these broadsides that were all over the northern United States at the time say, colored men fight for freedom. And that's exactly what they did when they got here. And so on April 3rd, they walked down at the jails. Garland White, chaplain of the regiment of the 28th, sits there and he says, they threw open the doors of the jails, and thousands came out rejoicing and praising God and Father Abraham. Right? This is the moment of liberation. This is the moment of freedom. This is the moment of emancipation where people are in the streets, and that lasts for days. Because Abraham Lincoln shows up after a while. He actually shows up in town, and Abraham Lincoln is walking in town. It says when he arrives in the city, people are following him. They're like, hey, look, it's that guy. They follow him all the way through the streets, all the way up to where Jefferson Davis, the president of the Confederacy, had his headquarters, his house. They go up there and they follow him there. There's a huge crowd outside there just saying and waving, wanting to shake the hand of Abraham Lincoln. It's lasting for days, people in the streets celebrating their freedom.
Yeah.
And it's an important moment in history because, again, we got to think about what Richmond means in this context. Second largest hub for the domestic slave trade. New Orleans has already come back to the United States in 1862. So that means that it's now the largest hub for slavery in the remainder of the United States. So when those soldiers come in and they throw open the jail cells, not only are they creating a moment, but they are engaging in an emancipation event, quite possibly the single largest emancipation event in the history of the United States. The most people liberated at one time happened right here in this city, right in Shockoe Bottom.
That is, wow. So what follows this? Like, what is it? It's a celebration. Mm-hmm. It's April 3rd is now officially the first block party that black people ever threw.
That's it. Yes, April the block party, the adult block parties. Right?
And then I'm sure everything was just like rainbows and puppies and unicorns, and we all went home, right?
Yeah, everybody accepted the end of slavery real well. No, unfortunately, by 1966, there are already the people who had run the Confederate government are now going, all right, I guess we lost. So business as normal, right? We'll accept the fact that the 13th Amendment is passing and that we can't have enslaved people anymore. Well, we can still find ways to make them work. We'll make vagrancy laws. We'll put out the black codes. We'll make it so that you can't not have a job. And of course, then they won't hire you. They're not going to pay you. They didn't pay for you before. So it takes an act of Congress, because now Abraham Lincoln is dead, by the way, only 10 days after his visit to Richmond.
Wow.
It's a very short period of time between the two. And now Andrew Johnson, the new president's like, we'll just forgive everybody. Don't worry about it. They can go back and doing what they want to do. But Congress and what were then the radical Republicans, the not conservative party at the time.
How things have changed.
Oh my. And they sit there and they say, no, we're going to override the president. We're going to institute and implement Reconstruction. And so Reconstruction Acts now force the actual reorganizing of the former Confederate states. And black people are involved right from the very forefront there. They're involved at every moment. There's a broadside that, well, I'll get back to that, but they're involved, they get elected, they're involved in the creation of the new Commonwealth of Virginia. The Underwood Convention sees the creation of the public school system. I don't know if y'all know this, but the public school system is black. It only exists because of black folks. There was no public school system anywhere in the South prior to the Civil War. And only because of Reconstruction, where black people demanded an education that had been denied them through illiteracy laws passed in the 1830s, specifically targeting black folks, that they're like, you're not going to deny us an education. You're not going to deny us the right to learn, to read, to write, to be able to communicate and express ourselves anymore. And that's going to be enshrined in the Constitution. That was black folks' work. So it's just kind of incredible how it all happens and goes down.
Look, man, I could listen to you talk about this all evening. I really could. Give people some recommendations on where they can start to do their own research and kind of fill in some of the gaps that we didn't get to.
Absolutely. I'm going to say the best place for y'all to start looking, because they do a great job, Encyclopedia Virginia. Right? You want to learn some things about Virginia specific stuff, that's where you can go. You can see all the stories, you can hear those things that are written there, you can see the images of them. That's an important one too, because that image that you had on that front part, right? The 1905 Emancipation Day parade.
Yeah.
That's an important image you can find on Encyclopedia Virginia, but it's important for a number of reasons. And I can tell you those right now, or I can save it for later. You let me know.
So we're going to bring you back, and I'm sure people are going to have some questions for our panel by the end of the night. So one more time for Joseph Rogers. Thank you for being a part of this. Thank you, man. Yeah. And he'll be back along with our other speakers. He'll be back, so if you have some questions for our panelists, you'll get a chance to ask those before we get out of here tonight. Say word. Fantastic. One more time for Joseph for coming out here. Shouts out to the Virginia Museum of History and Culture. Our next guest is a powerful vocalist who is an absolute legend in Richmond. We're in Richmond, so I'm gonna say Richmond, but I'm sure everywhere else too. We're just gonna say you're a worldwide, international legend. I said it, it's a fact. I've been a fan of hers for years, and I'm always just enthralled anytime I get to see her perform, particularly perform live. So you guys are in for an absolute treat. Please show some love for the incomparable, the legendary, the amazing Sam Reed.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. It is Emancipation Day, and I feel like my part in this day, in this evening, is really about liberation, because I think I write music that is about liberation, and in liberation, there's always that part where you have to return to yourself. So that's what I write about. We're going to do 3 songs. We should be able to get through 3 songs. We have one more if we need. This first song I just released recently. It's called Amazing. Y'all give it up for Calvin on keys. Truly just a song about how beautiful you are. Something's got me. Something's wrapped itself around my neck and won't let go. Can you spot me? Standing captive in the tower that I built all by myself. There are no doors, just a window, so I can see the wind blow, but I won't go. If you put that lifeline in my hand, I'd wrap it around my neck, just to prove to myself I mustn't forget. I lead the rescue, captain of the vessel. It's me I turn to, and I must heal myself all by myself. Cause I know who I am, I know who I am. Do you know who you are? Do you know who you are? Do you know who you are? Look at your fire, look at your blaze, you are amazing. Look at your hands, oh, look at the things you made. Look at those eyes, oh, look at your beautiful mind. Look in the mirror, you can see clearer. You are amazing, you are amazing. You are amazing, you are amazing. Something shifted, can't you feel it in the way the wind moves through the air? Naturally I'm lifted, I've observed the patterns in the sun, the clouds, the rain, the moon, all in one. I pull the cards, conquer the odds, study the sutras and the mudras, read the records, wandered through the desert without sight. I am the God, I am the mother, breathing forth your brand new life. I am the seed, I am the kingdom, fortress, I am light. Look through the veil, I am the Holy Grail, approved to be a lighthouse. I'll be waiting when you come back home, cause I know who I am, I know who I am. Do you know who you are? Do you know who you are? Do you know who you are? Look at your fire, look at your place, you are amazing. Look at those hands, oh, look at the things you made. Look at those eyes, oh, look at your beautiful mind. Look in the mirror, you can see clearer. You are amazing, you are amazing. You are amazing, you are amazing. Oh, look at the things you made. Look at those eyes, oh, you look at your beautiful mind. Look in the mirror, you can see clearer. You are amazing, you are amazing. You are amazing, you are amazing. Ooh, you are amazing, you are amazing. You are amazing, you are amazing. Thank you. And returning to ourselves, we find the wonderful things that we came into this space with, that you came into this life with. So this next song is actually a new song. I've never performed this song before, and Calvin just heard it for the first time last night. So we're gonna, exclusive right here. All right, so this song is called Complete. Once again, a song about just returning to yourself and all the things that you may learn along the way. She learned it wasn't on her, it was in her. It wasn't at the bottom of a bottle. She learned it wasn't in the bed with her legs spread. She learned that she was more than just a sinner, but sinners got souls too. Sometimes you gotta go through to learn. She learned that it was bigger, much, much bigger than she could figure. She learned to live and learn a way to give. She learned the price, the pain that love and hate can feel the same. She learned what is and what ain't. Found a brush, learned to paint the vision of a light that you see. I got it all, I feel completely dope. Have you ever loved yourself so pure? Felt like you're the cure? Have you ever loved yourself so sweet? I got it all, I feel complete. She learned not everybody's rocking with you. Intuition speaks louder than a picture. She learned to heal the world, you gotta heal first. So she rockin' with shorty that's in the mirror. Just let your road unfold. Nobody else will know the way to go. You learn that this is bigger, much, much bigger than you could figure. You learn to live, you learn your way to give. You learn the price, the pain that love and hate can feel the same. You learn what is, what ain't. You brush, you learn to paint a vision of a light that you see. You got it all, you are completely dope. So have you ever loved yourself so pure? Have you ever felt like you're the cure? Have you ever loved yourself so sweet? I got it all, I feel complete. Play count. Have you ever felt like you're the cure? Have you ever loved yourself so sweet? I got it all, I feel complete. Have you ever loved yourself so pure? Have you ever felt like you're the cure? Have you ever loved yourself so sweet? You got it all, you are complete. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for allowing me a space to figure out and fumble around, and I appreciate that. I really do. So those songs are about self. This song is about community. And it's called Never Alone, and I might ask you to sing along with me at the end. It's off of an album that I released some years back called This Is Love. The whole thing. It really is. Every time the breeze whispers to me, when the rain touches my skin, or I see the sun peek through the clouds, it makes me smile. I know you are holding my hand. There must be something bigger than this, larger than life. Without this, there'd be no light to shine on your path. Make way for your footsteps. Trust and believe it's in everything you see. I'm never alone. I'm never alone. I'm never alone. alone, I'm never alone, I'm never alone, I'm always home wherever I go, wherever I go, wherever I go. A little breakdown. What is this joy I feel even through a storm? It makes me strong. Why would I fret if the flowers bloom and the world's still keeping on? I can shake the end, but I know it's brighter than before. You give and don't give up. It doesn't take that much. It's a thing is slow, there's so much to see. The belief in unseen things ain't as strange as you may think. Let it make his presence known. I'm never alone, I'm never alone, I'm never alone, I'm never alone. I'm always on wherever I go, wherever I go, wherever I go. I'm never alone, I'm never alone, I'm never alone, I'm never alone. I'm always home wherever I go, wherever I go, wherever I go. Make it beautiful. He's good at that. So I'm not pushy, but this next part is where you can sing along. Because we show up in this space as individuals, but as individuals we create community, and in community we create energy. And it's the energy that we can all pull from, the fuel of light that lives within each and every one of us. So this next part of the song goes like this, and it's so easy. You can say la 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 la. Joyful noise. Sing la 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 la. so much for having me. My name is Sam Reed. Samantha, you can call me Samantha. Somebody else gave me that name, Sam. Y'all give it up for Calvin Brown on the keys. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Y'all feeling good? Say word. Fantastic. This event is brought to you by Marijuana Justice, who's doing some amazing work both in Richmond and throughout Virginia, and lending their efforts to movements that are happening even outside of Virginia. So we got a little something we want to show y'all from Marijuana Justice.
Marijuana Justice knew that human rights is our strategy for reparations. Marijuana Justice and our stakeholders now are really focused on bringing these same narratives of liberation through the U.S. The Southern Human Rights Organizers Conference was critical for us to be a part of.
Everybody in this room signed up for something that's going to last a lifetime.
Virginia is the first state in the South to repeal the prohibition. In order to continue with the progress, we've got to create solidarity.
From civil war to civil rights, America implodes and black and brown bodies still suffer the most. And civility is a little white lie told to children in classrooms, a fairy tale turned fact.
Legislation be a disease, be flowing through the veins of my city, infecting my people with the plague, killing us off like virus. Done forgot drug dealer be code for medicine man, so they flush us out like we be infection.
It's really just about rebuilding the community from the ground up together. And it's some of the most radical Black imaginations that have been able to bring that to the forefront.
We demand reparations. We demand reparations. We demand reparations. We demand reparations.
One more time for Marijuana Justice. Make sure you visit marijuanajustice.org. You can find them on social media at THC Justice and see all the things that they're doing as well. Say word. And we're going to hear more from the founder, the creator of Marijuana Justice, Chelsea Hicks Wise, a little later on our panel also. All right, are we ready to keep this thing rolling? Somebody say yeah. Fantastic, fantastic, fantastic. I don't want to miss a step in this bio. I ain't gonna talk a whole lot of trash because we're not that close yet, but I told Dreesen to send me a short bio. And everybody got their own little definition of short. I meant short like Kevin Hart short, right? And she was like Shaquille O'Neal short. I was like, oh, okay, well we have different definitions. Dreesen Heath is a trailblazing advocate and a fierce strategist at the forefront of reparative justice, human rights, and liberations movements. She led the Human Rights Watch and racial justice and reparations work as a researcher and an advocate in HRW's United States program from 2018 to 2023. Before joining the Human Rights Watch, Heath works as a special assistant to the director and counsel of the Brennan Center for Justice's Washington, D.C. office. This person has been making moves for a while in these movements, and we're excited to have her here tonight. So please show some love for Dreesen Heath. So first and foremost, hey.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm here. I'm with y'all, so I'm good.
Word. We're excited to have you. We had a great conversation the last time I talked to you, and then I was with you. And tell me the name of that spot again. That was in Massachusetts.
Yes, Cabrillo.
Cabrillo, yeah, for a retreat, which was such a healing experience. So again, thank you for being a part of this. So let's start local. I know you work on a national level, right? Let's start local. What has been Virginia's role in the larger reparations movement?
Absolutely. Well, you can start right here in this room with Marijuana Justice's work, responding to, the harms in relation to the drug war, impacts of cannabis prohibition, of cannabis convictions, right? What does it look like to repair those harms specifically? How many different forms of reparations, and we'll get into that, applies in this case as well. I will say in Virginia, I'm going to name some of these examples, but know that each of these each of these I've seen have stalled in their efforts for whatever reason, right? So you may have seen the Virginia legislature pass bills to support the Episcopal diocese giving reparations, right, in relation to the church's role, right, in the chattel slavery in Virginia. Virginia Commonwealth University has a Gabriel Project where they are searching for descendants of people who helped build the university and families that may have been displaced by the university. You have efforts. There's another Descendants Scholarship Education Fund that was passed by the Virginia legislature, which as of the last few months, they haven't been giving out any scholarships because they've run into complexities and, bureaucracy around resources and decision making based off of some of these federal executive orders that are coming down that are making people put a stop on their work. Virginia had an opportunity to pass a state reparations commission bill, and it did not. And so some of these efforts are a concession to that effort. But Virginia certainly has more work to do. I've also, the Williamsburg Bray School, right? There was a restoration project there to memorialize also, your oldest living Black schoolhouse. These are all reparative measures, but I will say each of these measures, needs some work, needs some more commitment, needs some more resources to become fully realized, and we need to go beyond.
So I think that's interesting because I think sometimes the conversation around reparations gets kind of reduced to just, it's, the federal government's gonna cut everybody, gonna cut all the Black people a check. And what you're saying is that it works on different levels, right? It's coming from the university, it's coming from the churches. It's how does that look in real time? And those efforts have stalled. Some of those efforts have stalled. But how do those efforts even start, begin at that level, not just when we're talking about the federal level?
Yeah, I mean, look, everybody says all politics is local. Well, you could say reparations is local too. But what I want everyone to leave this room knowing is that you're not just owed reparations from the federal government. You're also owed reparations from the state of Virginia. And you're owed reparations from the city of Richmond. You're owed reparations from the county. You're owed reparations from the institutions that have created harm. You are owed reparations from businesses, these insurance companies, these banks in this area, right, that are discriminating against people's loans. And, the police force owes you reparations, right? All of these are culpable parties, as we would say in a technical term. So there's no limit, right? We should not be limiting what the reparations is because there's been no limit on that harm.
Come on now.
Right? So everybody needs to pay up. And when I say pay up, I mean including compensation, but I also mean when you have experienced police violence, right? An entire community, right? That is not just the economic issue. That's a psychological issue. That's a potentially displacement issue. That's a restitution issue, right? Restoration of your employment, your access to education. All of that is denied as a result of this violence. And so reparations, if comprehensive and if it is actually directed in the ways that it's supposed to be, is supposed to tackle all of those aspects of the harm, not just what the economic accessible damage has been.
Right. So it's more than just a check, right? There are other things that also need to happen, other ways that reparations can shows up.
Right.
What are some? I do want to talk about this because
Yeah.
it becomes a tricky conversation, particularly in mixed company, right? When we talk about reparations, I think it's unfortunate that sometimes even in amongst Black folk, right?
Absolutely.
Reparations also becomes a tough topic. What is some of the pushback? What are the arguments against reparations?
Yeah. So you hear, that was too long ago, right? But the impacts, people are still benefiting.
Right. Harm is still recent.
Right. The harm is still recent. And this is one of the misnomers also about reparations, is that it's just about the past.
Right.
Reparations is also very much about the present, right? What this federal administration is doing right now,
Right.
we gonna need reparations for this too in real time, right? And we have a chance to add this to the accumulating debt, right? That is owed. And so to your question, is this too long ago? Okay. Then you get the slippery slope arguments, right? Where, well, if we give it to Black people, we're going to have to give it to all these other people. Well, let's, bring out the receipts.
All right.
Yeah,
Sure.
right. It's the conversation of like never ending repair. And that's actually the point of reparations, is that there's no closure to this. People argue for reconciliation. This is my personal view. I don't see anything we need to reconcile, because we have not reconciled. We don't have any shared understanding of our history. So how are we going to reconcile? And that shouldn't even be our end goal. Our end goal is the self-determination. Our end goal is actualizing liberation. You have also these arguments against, obviously, this is not feasible. This is too expensive. I'm acknowledging that, people are coming to this room, and all of us, got to pay our bills. We got to find something to eat every day. We got to get our family members taken care of, access to health care. All of these social safety net issues are incredibly important, because there's so many arguments against reparations, right? So in terms of feasibility, your taxpayer dollars, every time somebody is killed by the police, in this city, you're paying for that. You're paying for those lawsuits, right? Your taxpayer dollars are going to restoration for other communities, right? Why is that, why is that not an issue, right?
So those cases, right, where we do see police brutality, and then the family sues, and by some chance they win that civil suit.
Yeah, y'all are
right?
paying
And
for that.
That's
The
taxpayer money
community is
that's
paying for that.
Yeah.
When we talk about the resource issue, we don't have a resource issue anywhere, right? We really don't. And I hate that we have this conversation in this container of scarcity, because really, if you think about our peoplehood, if you think about the African diaspora, our culture is abundance. So our possibilities of living, of thriving, are also abundant. And we need to capitalize on that and push back on any government resourcing, right? That's spending money protecting the bald eagles. And, I'm all for the bald eagles having protection, but sometimes if you look at these budget lines and you see what the expenditures are, this isn't a resource problem.
We don't even need that many
They're
eagles.
they're using this to peddle their anti-Blackness, and not resolve the issues that need to be addressed, and the harm that needs to be ceased.
Right. And purposely prioritizing these other things that, aren't necessarily as important as reconciling, because we've established there's no you can't reconcile. We ain't reconciled just yet. But purposely prioritizing these other things in order to kind of continue the neglect that is happening, and subsequently continue the harm as well.
Right.
As a community, before I let you go, what can we as a community do? Right, you're leading these movements, you're in these spaces, but somebody might be like, well, I don't know how I'm supposed to lend my efforts to this particular cause. What does that look like for people who are a little confused or just not sure on how to help?
Well, so many of the local reparations efforts have started from people just organizing locally, right? From people identifying, hey, we know this whole block of people got displaced in the 70s. We know the highway displaced families. We, have calculated the harm related to the drug war. We've calculated forced labor in Virginia. This is what we're now going to ask for of our institutions, or what we're going to build as ourselves as a community. You can start, you could start there. I also want we could get to the policy and how you can support the federal reparations efforts, state reparations efforts, anybody as a constituent. And when you reach out to your representatives, I mean, this is the same kind of format where you would request a meeting or send a letter, right? You can do that advocacy wise at the federal level for HR 40, the Commission to Study Reparations Proposals Act, for the Reparations Now resolution that I authored when former Congresswoman Cori Bush was in office. But I also want folks to know that it is hard to gather this idea that you're going to beg your perpetrators, right, for your repair. And so part of this is also what type of cultural and artistic interventions can you all perform in your lives in Richmond, in everyday life? What are the, I see the beautiful murals down Broad Street, right, but what are the other permanent installations that need to be built, that need to remind people of who Black Richmond is, and the legacies of Black Richmond. So it's limitless in terms of how you can actually apply reparations work. But
it definitely starts at home.
It starts at home, right. And you can mobilize at different levels. But I want to lift up the fact that you can. When I think about visualizing reparations, right? We have so many artists in this room. What does reparations look like through song? Right? I was, that was part of my repair process, hearing from Sam earlier, right? What does a world where reparations is applied in Richmond, what does that look like? Some graphic designers, can we build, a 3D model of what Jackson Ward would look like if reparations was applied? These are just reparative measures that help fuel the fight and fuel people's hope around actually achieving this.
Right. I appreciate you. Thank you. Dreesen Heath, y'all. One more time for Dreesen Heath, and we'll have more from you when we do the panel. One more time for Dreesen Heath, y'all. Dreesen Heath, dropping some jewels on us. You can do better than that. You can do better than that. One more time for Dreesen Heath, y'all. Thank you. So I would be remiss if I didn't get a poem in real quick. Can I get a poem in real quick? And then we're gonna talk to our panelists. We're gonna bring back Dreesen and Joseph and Chelsea Higgs Wise to answer some questions if you have them. Say word. Fantastic. The definition of apology is a genuine or regretful acknowledgement of a wrongdoing. It could also be a poor or sorry excuse of something. Example, Black folk were placed into this apology of a country, forced to make it better, then punished as a reward. We are due an apology. On the day you realize that the writhing pain of people has been festering beneath the foundation of America for so long that you could see it lying next to the fossils of the facade, all brittle and broken pieces of late-stage capitalism now cracking under the weight of rebellion. When you're finally willing to acknowledge that the stairway to American greatness have been the bones of black and brown people, that we have been the tools to American success, shelved into the prison complexes until it needs us to do the labor. I mean, fight the fires or clean the roadways and then bake under the sun just to fry in an electric chair. When your guilt is thick as mucus in the throat, when you cough out an apology, it should say more than "I'm sorry." Be specific. You're sorry for 246 years of human trafficking, for tearing families apart like bread and then feeding them to ravenous crows, for unraveling the nooses into legislation that has choked out the voices of countless lives. Sorry for preying upon the black church as the prayers turn to embers, the flames rise, but the hope crumbles. In the name of God and country, sorry for demonizing the same plant you deemed an industry. In my hand, the leaf is a crime. In yours, it's currency. Apologize for the redlining. I mean, the bloodlines outlining sidewalk chalk lines when caught in the line of fire. I mean, for the protesters that didn't make it back, for the ancestors that don't see today, for the children who may not see tomorrow, punctured by pointed prejudice propaganda that hits like knives to the sternum. I want an apology that I can hold without the fear that it will slice through me. I should be able to feel your regret in my palms, all tearful and heavy, until it bursts from my grip and floods an entire nation the way an angry God floods a corrupted world. I don't just want renamings and statutes. I want settlements stacked like stepping stones out of the stagnant existence that we've been forced into. I want policies that don't hunt me in the night and police that don't murder in broad day. With satisfaction comes acknowledgement, comes accountability, comes change behavior, comes with systems that sit with its citizens to instill safety and shared wealth. Otherwise, it isn't an apology. It's just sorry. Y'all feeling good? Say yeah? Fantastic, fantastic. Could I actually get my my speakers up here? Can we bring back Joseph Rogers? Show some love for Joseph Rogers, please. Can we get Dreesen Heath back up here? Show some love for Dreesen Heath, please. And the lovely Chelsea Higgs Wise, if we can get Chelsea Higgs Wise up here. Well, welcome back, y'all, all right? And welcome, Chelsea. First of all, thank you for helping put this together. This has been an absolutely amazing night, full of information, and we had a good time. We heard from Sam and all these like wonderful poems and such, so we really appreciate this. For this and for the Poetic Justice Project, y'all be sure to check out marijuanajustice.org so you can see more about the Poetic Justice Project. Say word. Tell us a little bit about marijuana justice and what you guys are currently doing, how people can get involved, all those things, before we break out into the panel.
Thanks so much, Roscoe. Thank you all for coming out, for supporting this. Marijuana justice has always been rooted in history and understanding where we came from. We actually co-founded this organization in 2019. In Virginia in 2019, that's when we were actually commemorating the 400th year since the first Africans were trafficked here, and we really began our own institution of slavery. And so marijuana justice was founded very intentionally in that moment to call for repair. How many people have ever read the book, The New Jim Crow, seen the movie 13th, or even better, read the book Slavery by a Different Name? Yeah. So these are actually stories of how the United States manufactured their way from chattel slavery to where we are today, continuing the harm, right? So we can actually see in writing where the policies were created, where they did not stop the harm. And so we know right now, it's like, well, what is this new institution that's come? This institution that's harming us at hospitals, that's separating families, that's stealing people from our communities, that's stealing money from us. This is a whole institution. It's called the war on drugs. It's a vestige of slavery. And we know that because while we were doing the numbers in 2019 and we were saying, what is the harm that's been done, particularly through this drug war, we saw that since the crime bill done by Joe Biden in the 1990s. In Virginia alone, we were arresting over 20,000 people a year for small amounts of marijuana. And of those numbers, Black people were being arrested 4 times the rate as white folks. Okay? That was from the 90s until 2020, the amount of people. How many people in here have lost a loved one to overdose? Yeah. How many people know someone that's lost someone for overdose? I bet you do. So what you might hear right now, because we've already heard, just because it's current doesn't mean it's new. We've already heard that so much harm is happening, and what marijuana justice is now even looking at is that you're going to hear across Virginia, across the United States, that fatal overdoses are going down. Well, in Virginia, Marijuana Justice and our partners with Justice Forward Virginia actually asked the Virginia Department of Health, hey, give me those numbers by race. And as we saw, fatal overdoses were going down for white people, where here in Virginia, since the pandemic, it's tripled for Black folks. Tripled overdose fatalities. And so when we're looking at the vestige of slavery as through the drug war, we can see that, yes, we are ushering people into the prison system for that labor, for the exploitation of the work, for the furniture that people are sitting in. The General Assembly has furniture that's built by prison labor. It's actually wild to see. But we're also watching the institution of the drug war kill us when we're not useful. So I really want to encourage everyone to follow this movement, follow what's happening with the drug war, and what we've been working on very specifically since 2020 is what we call coins, not cuffs. So in Virginia, you may know that in 2021, we became the first state in the South to repeal the prohibition of marijuana. You can clap for that. And what that means is that number went from 20,000 down to 1,100. Yeah. Now, the sad part I'm going to tell you is that out of the 1,100 people, Black folks are still getting arrested more. The disparity has actually increased to 5 times the rate. All right. But what we are working on now and why it's so important that we're continuing this race is because we are looking for, hey, if you're going to sell it, that revenue, that tax money, let's see where it's going to go. So the revenue that we have, we've actually passed a bill in the House and the Senate. The last 2 years has been vetoed by the governor, but 60% of the revenue of marijuana that's sold, once we pass it, will go to the Cannabis Equity Reinvestment Fund. Yes. 60% of that. So that's going to be millions of dollars, over $300 million that we're expecting the first 5 years. 60% of that goes to that equity fund that will allow for people with past crimes, marijuana crimes, to be involved in business, have startup capital. It's going to go to education. It can start guaranteed income projects. This will be money for us. And that was a very strategic plan that we said, you will not legalize marijuana unless you do it this way so that we can have some control over these types of resources. Now, it's going to be up to us what we do with that money. That is still an open door that we're really working on here in Marijuana Justice. But I'm really excited to be here to have this conversation because the more that we can understand how we got here, the more we know where we're going and how we're going to get there together.
That's just enough of that. Fantastic. I want to open this up to the audience, and if you have any questions for any of our panelists, you had a little shy. Is that a little shy hand there? Okay, all right, okay. Wait, go ahead.
I'm just trying to figure out how to phrase this exactly, but it kind of is related to exactly what you just finished up on. How do you feel, or what's your response to just more the disenfranchisement of the Black community when it comes to the legalization of marijuana as it's legalized throughout the different states, right? How, yes, the legalization process is being had, but also there's the aspect of within the Black community, there's a lot more, I don't want to say turmoil, but I want to say, like, given that there's less access to the Black community when it comes to being able to be on the legal side of it. You know, because of the disenfranchisement, there's less access because we don't have the resources. So I just wanted to know how you felt about that specifically.
I feel like I'm going to make a fund that allows for $400,000 to be lent out to a business owner, not lent out, to be given to a business owner for a startup. That's what that Cannabis Equity Fund does. When I say $400,000, that's not actually a lot of money in the cannabis business, but that is what's written in there. So we're talking about that type of money being startup capital. And I want to point out what you also just said, that it makes me feel like there is so much more work to do because it's not just disenfranchisement towards selling the plant, right? The most affordable homes here in Richmond, which is public housing, is on federal land, which means it actually doesn't matter what Virginia does legally. It's still prohibited there. They're not allowed to even have it, much less use it. Otherwise, they're going to lose their house. They're not going to have a home. Their kids are going to be in trouble. You know, marijuana justice doesn't just work on legalization. We actually are still working on a bill to release people that are in prison still right now, for people that have ankle bracelets on probation, for people in jail. We also have a bill to protect parents. Did you know right now, even though it's legal to smoke, you can get your kids taken? What kind of hole is that? And guess who's being enforced on that the most? Black folks. So it makes me feel like we have so much more work to do. It makes me feel like we need to be more innovative of how we're addressing this repair that's happening right now, but also what do we need in the future, right? What is the long-term strategy there for that? And I really appreciate your question, because I always talk about it goes beyond just entrepreneurship in cannabis, right? Like, we have to make this accessible. We have to make this safe.
We got time for maybe one or two quick questions, if anybody has some. I thought I saw a couple of more hands before for our last question.
How y'all doing? So the question I have is for people who are actively involved in the process of bills becoming laws and this actually coming into fruition, and they seem to have a bit of reluctancy towards the repair aspect. And I've noticed that and witnessed that firsthand in lobbying, and that is a real thing. Some people seem to be completely on board, but the repair element is somehow viewed as repeating a disenfranchisement. And I personally am confused about how that can be viewed that way, but how is it that we can move beyond those obstacles when those people are directly involved in the process?
Well, this is what we heard from Dreesen before about arguments against reparations, right? So, number one, marijuana justice opens up a lobby day every year if you want to come and talk to legislators. But also, we have to realize that they're going to come with the pieces of that's too much. Well, now that's DEI, or now you're giving special treatment to Black folks, and we're just going to continue to frame it in the way with the numbers of the harm. And we're just not going to back down from that. And marijuana justice has actually opposed legalization bills because they did not have the repair in it. Like, why would you be able to have this money, this profit, this revenue without us, right? So I thank you so much for this question. And I'm actually going to invite Dreesen to come in and just go over the 5 components of reparations really quickly, because this isn't just for the drug war, it's for all types of reparations to look through.
Right. I appreciate that. So the UN has these United Nations, international mechanism that, has power but does not use it effectively. So let me just name that. UN Principles Framework came about in the 80s and 90s. And so you've heard stories already about self-emancipation. And so I just want to also honor the work that was done prior to those principles being defined, right? The Belinda Royale Suttons in Massachusetts that successfully petitioned for her freedom and her pension, right? Post-enslavement, and then re-enslaved through apprenticeship programs. So I just want to set the context for before I get into these 5 principles. 5 principles being 1, restitution. This is a return of people back to their dignity, a return of property if it was taken, a return of your familial artifacts if they were stolen, a return of your employment, return of your access to education, because education loss is a huge component of our history and of the deprivation, right? Compensation. These are everything from, calculate the harms of slave labor to calculate the harms related to police violence, calculating the harms in the context of the war on drugs, right? But you've also seen communities internationally. There are groups in Aboriginal groups in Australia that got money for their loss, their spiritual loss to their connection to their land, right? They were compensated for their spiritual loss to their land, right? And we can make that same argument for the city of Richmond, right? So I just wanted to name that as well. Rehabilitation, right? This is addressing the psychological harms, the psychological trauma, the intergenerational traumas that we carry. Satisfaction is the component of, historical preservation, of cultural memory work, of permanent installations, of the official apologies. Many states, if you look, New Jersey is one of them, have passed apologies for slavery, right? But guess what? There's a clause. There's a limiting clause in that says, but you can't sue us for what we just said, right? So they want to deny all culpability, right? We need it all. We need the receipts officially, but we don't need those limiting clauses. Then you have guarantees of non-repetition. Rehabilitation also deals with legal services, right? So in the case of Chicago police torture victims that have one of the most comprehensive reparations programs in the country, compensation, a trauma-informed hospital that the survivors and their families can go to. They have access to free city education, as well as a curriculum that teaches why reparations was actually necessary in the context of their harms, but it also included free legal services. So that's another component. And the last component is guarantees of non-repetition. How do we end this harm? How do we ensure that this harm does not occur again? And one of the big pieces of that is abolition, right? Abolishing campus police, abolishing, other institutions that have only committed harm from the beginnings, right? Even our Department of Housing and Urban Development at the federal level, right? When that was created, there are all types of discriminatory clauses in the initial charter of creating HUD. So yeah, they're going to continue to discriminate for as long as the department exists. So one of the things that I'm also, in the times where we're trying to grab onto hope and possibility, right, and seeing these institutions be eviscerated, this is also our turn to be like, hey, well, this institution also wasn't really working for us the way it was supposed to. So how can we exploit, obviously there's deep loss with services and direct care that are, that come out of USDA, that come out of a Department of Education, that come out of a Health and Human Services. But how can we use the dismantling of these institutions to our advantage, because they were not set up in a way to support us the way they needed to anyway?
Mm-hmm. And Joseph, I was going to ask you about that too, like, because one of the things that comes up is that reparations is this like far-fetched thing, right? America's never gonna da-da-da-da. But there are other cultures who have received reparations. Am I getting that right? Yeah. Joseph, are you able to speak to that, like about like historically, like what cultures have received reparations and kind of what that looked like at all?
I'm probably no. I think that's
okay. I didn't know, as a historian, I didn't know if you also knew. Go ahead, Dresa.
No, yeah. I mean, cultures and just groups of people, right? So right now, there's a 9/11 Victims Restitution Fund, right? That's gotten reauthorized year after year after year. That is a reparations program.
Right.
It is responding to a harm, and not just the people whose family members were killed, right? It's anybody who was exposed to the dust and the asbestos from the building are receiving free health care right now. That's a federal program that is reauthorized hundreds of millions of dollars each year.
The opioid settlement money here in Virginia is a reparations program.
Right.
And they've put a lot of that money into cops. unfortunately. So we do have to continue to look. I mean, there have been, Japanese internment camps. They've also gotten repair. And I mean, the list really goes on. Even and I see Joseph wants to speak. Yeah,
because I'm thinking about this right in the historical context, because where my expertise lies is less in what other cultures do around the world, or even kind of what we're doing in a modern day sense, but where those roots grow. Right? Because what reparations needs to look like is what we have done to survive. Right? Because we've taken actions over the course of the harm that's being done to us to survive. We've built, during the period of enslavement, and families are being ripped apart. We built new families. We don't call everybody auntie and uncle for no reason, right? It's because that's our family. No matter if we're blood related or not, that's the family that was left to us, that we were brought to when the rest of them were torn apart, right? We built these familial networks. We built these religious networks. We built these communities together. And that's what the reparations can look like as well, because we're seeing beyond just what you were saying before, right? Seeing beyond the financial aspect of it, just the pure dollars and cents of it, which is also owed, but into building and supporting the communities that had taken up the space that is required because of these harms that are being done. We police ourselves in our own way, right? And those are the structures that need to be built into place once the police are abolished, right? So when the system is removed, that is the idea that you have to put in place to put it out. You look at the ways that we've already helped our own selves, keeping ourselves safe, keeping our community safe. Those are the templates that need to be put back in place once that the harmful aspect is gone. Because I'm going to bring it back to that picture that you have up right on the front, right? That Emancipation Day parade. That sole thing, that's 1905. And I'm going to tell you, the Encyclopedia Britannica does say, they celebrated this for years afterwards. They celebrated for a couple of years, and then they brought it back in 1905 for a very specific reason. Because in 1902, 1903, that new constitution that was put into place by Virginia disenfranchised 80% of black men, 50% of white men. Virginia was the least democratic institution on the planet. Around the world where democracies existed, they had more voter representation than they did in Virginia. And in that moment, that march, that Emancipation Day parade, that was a protest, right? We say pride is a riot. Emancipation Day was a protest. Because at this point, they're coming in, John Mitchell Jr., Maggie Walker, they've already instituted a boycott of the segregated street systems, which is the first big act that is putting into place with this new constitution. And they're saying, no, we're going to walk. And for 2 years, they walked. They drove that company out of business in year one. Oh, wow. It went bankrupt because they walked. They started in April of 1904. It went bankrupt by September. And then the next April, they celebrated by having that Emancipation Day parade where they continued to walk. It is about presenting and taking these moments and these powerful times that we're seeing are happening over and over again, and using those moments that we have in our history to capitalize, to build upon, and create the systems that we want to see in the world that change.
Thank you to our speakers. Y'all show some love for our guest speakers, our panel, Chelsea Hicks-Wise, Dreesen Heath, Joseph Rogers. Please make sure you connect with these people to find out what they're doing and how you can lend your efforts and your energy as well. Say word. I also want to thank Sam Reed for coming through. Y'all show some love for Sam Reed and Calvin. Show some love for Mo Flows. Make sure you connect with these artists. They're super talented, and they've got projects out. They've got things that they're doing. They've got shows coming up. They've got yoga. My name is Roscoe Burnems. I've been your host for tonight. All right, thanks for coming out and rocking with us. Make sure you scan the QR codes and donate and follow everything that Marijuana Justice is doing. They can't continue to make change without your support. Say word. We're going to get up out of here. I want to thank the Black History Museum of Virginia for opening their doors to us. You show some love for that. Thank you to the Weisberg Foundation for helping sponsor this event. And am I forgetting anybody? Anything? Okay. And shouts out to the Writers Den, which is my company. Make sure you follow us at the Writers Den RVA. Y'all make sure y'all get home safe, and we appreciate you. We love you. We'll see you later. Thanks for being in the den.